Hi, I'm Sam, and I am a mom whose children were removed by CPS, our child welfare agency, and in this country, and my children were never given back. My rights were later terminated, which was 3 years ago in 2022. Very soon after my rights being terminated, God placed it on my heart to share my story. It took me 6 months to build up the courage to do that. I recently watched and shared the very first video I ever made, and it impacted me, seeing how scared I was. It was very brave of me to share my CPS story. It's something I'm not proud of. It's something very personal. It's something that is seen by our society as bad. I used to be a person that assumed, without any hesitation, that if a mother had CPS involved, she was bad. And if a mother had her rights terminated, that she deserved it, that she was horrible, that she abused and neglected her kids. But I now have the lived experience to know that children are being unlawfully removed by CPS, to know that good parents are losing custody, and due to the corruption in the system and the way it's broken and works against the parents, that good parents are having their rights terminated. So it's a lot of story and it's a lot of trauma, and it requires a lot of healing. So I'm Sam, and I'm here to share my healing journey and to ask you to join. I would love and be honored to be a part of your healing journey. And so make sure you've subscribed, and please like this video, because I don't want any mother in this country suffering in silence due to CPS anymore. Every mother deserves to heal and to know her worth and to know she's not alone. So press that like button and let's get started with today's video. Today's topic is radical acceptance. How do you feel when you hear that term, radical acceptance? Do you feel excitement? Do you feel dread or disbelief? Radical acceptance can't help me. Or do you feel confusion that you might need clarity on? Well, what is radical acceptance? Radical acceptance is very simple, and maybe that's why it gets overlooked so much. It's a very powerful little tool, though. Mindset, I guess you would say. Radical acceptance is accepting things, accepting your life, accepting the present time, your situation, accepting everything, even the past, for it is what it is. It's very simple and it's very basic. And I think that is why it gets overlooked a lot. But it's not so easy. That could be another reason it gets overlooked. It's not easy actually at all to look at your life, especially as moms who don't have our children and don't get to raise our children, and who are missing out on their childhood. And whether we made a mistake, or we never abused or neglected our children, or had them in danger and still lost them and or our rights, there's a lot encompassed in that. There's a lot of guilt, shame, regret, blame, accountability. There's so much in our current situations, and radical acceptance is asking you to accept it is what it is. It's like my video when I talked about why. Why, God, why? Why did you take my children from me? I shared how I don't even use the word why. I shared how why can get you stuck. And so radical acceptance is applying the action plan of you're not asking why. You are accepting everything. It is what it is. I first learned about radical acceptance in the summer of 2019. I will never forget it. It didn't change my life that summer, but it started the process of me changing, of me growing up, of me getting through what CPS had turned my life into, which if you've had CPS in your life with an open judicial case, you know that your life becomes a nightmare. So I was at my rock bottom. My children were removed at the end of 2018. I had never been a part of the system. I never knew anybody who had been part of the system. I come from a good family. I graduated college, and that's why part of my message that I share on TikTok these past 3 years has been, if it happened to me, it can happen to you. But anyway, so when they were removed at the end of 2018, the first night without them was their first night ever without me, and my first night ever without them since the day they were born. And I remember what got me through that night was knowing that the next day in court that my kids would be given back to me, that this was all a big mistake, and that everything would, get cleared up tomorrow in court, and my kids would be coming back to me the next day. Nothing got cleared up in court. I didn't even have a voice in court. And it actually got worse, way worse in court. I will never forget sitting in that courtroom hearing, I think it was the attorney for CPS talk, and she was describing a mother. And I remember thinking, that's a bad mom. That mom doesn't sound like a good mom. That mom's got issues. And then realizing she was talking about me. The next day in court, my life got worse because a narrative was given to the judge, and therefore submitted to the courts about my life and what was going on in my life and the recent past choices I had made and what I was doing and what I was planning. The person that they were describing literally was not me. And I didn't get to speak up and set the record straight. And because these courts and their judges are corrupt, no evidence was required to prove anything that they were saying. And so in every CPS case, there's a false narrative created. Now, I don't know how much is truth and how much is made up. I don't know how much is a little bit true, but they twist it to something not true. Percentage in every case, I have no way of ever knowing that. But I know in my case that it was made up to such a high degree that I didn't even know she was talking about me. So, still not knowing anything about the system, not being informed of the system, not being informed of my rights. My attorney didn't do their job ever. I found out when it was too late that they weren't even on my side. Another very common thing for parents to have to go through in this situation. But so after that court date, when it was finalized that my children were not going to be in my custody, I immediately got a home. I immediately got a job. I was taking their drug test, and I thought everything would be okay. I knew I was going to see my caseworker the next month in December, and I thought that everything would be fine. I really did. I never understood clearly and factually why they took my kids. We were at a homeless shelter when they were removed, and so I figured that, and I knew that, even though we were safe and the removal was unlawful, it isn't an ideal place to raise your children. It was temporary. And so the fact that my children, as I sit here today, are adopted, and that is a permanent solution to a parent's temporary crisis and issue, it's one of the major issues I have with CPS. But let's stay on topic. Radical acceptance. Okay. So when I met my caseworker the next month, after month 1 of my open CPS case, I showed her all my improvements. I mean, I was a good mom. So I showed her, paycheck, you see where I'm living. Give me my kids back. No. She said there's a good chance I may never get them back. And she said that me and my kids' life would never be the same, ever, the way as I knew it. And that is when I fell into my deep depression. And that was my rock bottom. So 2019, when it began, I was traumatized. I was grieving. I was in shock. I wasn't even in my body. I was alone. And I was going to say I was scared, but I don't remember being scared. I was so damn angry. Oh, I was angry. I think I was too angry to experience the feeling of being scared. I was raging. And I thank God that I'm even still here, because I didn't care what happened to me. Like, that's what CPS did to me. The first few months, I was, after that first month, for the next couple months, I stopped. I mean, I didn't even work my case. Like, the CPS was the last people on the face of this earth I wanted to work with. And so I pouted for a couple months. And then I realized that I had to work with these people, or I was never going to get my kids back. They threw me into a class called BDT, Behavior Dialectical Therapy, that summer. Just was going through the motions. And so I had this class every week. It was on Zoom. Did we have COVID yet? Not yet. Anyway, this class changed my life. It was the only good thing I got out of my entire 3-year case experience with CPS was BDT, Behavior Dialectical Therapy. And the core teaching and value in BDT is radical acceptance. And this class, it started the growth that I needed to be a emotionally regulated adult. And that's what it taught me, was that my emotions didn't control me. And so your emotions don't control you. On this healing journey, we need to get a grip. And we need to work with our body, soul, and mind, because it's obviously all connected. And so when we radically accept our life the way it is, it's not accepting it like we're okay with it. We're not going to do anything about it, but it's accepting it so it gets you in a place where you can do something about it. So it's so simple. I mean, this is something you tell yourself. It's something you literally just consciously accept. You're willing to accept it. And that's it. And then they teach you some like mindfulness, relaxation techniques to go along with this big, huge acceptance thing called reality, I've adapted this mindset of, 4 or 5 years ago. So it's hard for me to really get across any better than that about the, when you go from not accepting reality to a person who accepts reality, that's such a big shift and jump. But it's hard for me to share the contrast of it because I'm already here in the reality part. And I don't like reality any more than you do. Okay. Believe that. But It's that simple. And it's not that is huge. That's not the life changer, but it's absolutely the required baseline to start with for that huge change that you need and deserve and require to grow and move forward successfully as healed, sane adults. Okay, so that's what that is. It sounds simple because it is, but you've got to start there. So accepting everything the way it is. You're not arguing about it. You're not denying it. You're not in denial. You're not asking why. You accept it for what it is. And then the next technique that they taught me was the half smile, open hands. Okay? So it is what it sounds like. And what it does is it's your body language, your body posture, your body movements signaling to your brain that everything's okay, that you're safe. It gets you out of survival mode, which is like the whole point of healing. So it teaches you to do a set of, actually I have a list here. It's imagery. You go through, I have a list of situations that you're going to think of, and your body doesn't know the difference. So it's very real to your mind. I mean, your mind doesn't know the difference. So it's very real to your mind. And so the practice of half smile. Remember how to smile? Yeah. And you don't have to tease and be real fake or anything. Just the corners of your mouth. Turn them up. And then open hands, just as it sounds. I do that in yoga. Every time I do yoga. I wish I could say every day. I'm working. I'm trying to get there. Self-discipline, that's nothing nice. So here's the list. Imagine, when you first wake up in the morning. Half smile when you first wake up in the morning. Second, half smile during your free moments. Whether you're looking at a painting on the wall or a leaf outside on the ground or a child walking by, just do a half smile. Let me backtrack real quick. As soon as you open your eyes in the morning, before you get out of bed, take some deep breaths. Inhale, exhale, and do a half smile. And then during your free moments during the day, the third one on the list is half smile, open hands, willing hands when you're listening to music. And then the fourth one is when you are irritated. This is when it starts getting effective. The people at the store with a long line and everybody's bitching and complaining and you're just sitting there. They're going to think you're like a psychopath or something. But no, this is good stuff. This is where it gets good. The next one is half smile when you're contemplating, thinking about a person you dislike or someone you're angry with. And so I want to read this one to you. The instructions are: sit quietly, breathe, and smile a half smile. Hold your hands open with palms up. Imagine the image of the person who has caused you suffering. Regard the features you dislike the most or find the most repulsive. Try to examine what makes this person happy and what causes suffering in his or her daily life. Imagine the person's perceptions. Try to see what patterns of thought and reason this person follows. Examine what motivates this person, their hopes, actions. Finally, consider the person's consciousness. See whether the person's views and insights are open and free or not, and whether or not the person has been influenced by prejudices, narrow-mindedness, hatred, or anger. See whether or not the person is master of him or herself, or if they're controlled by somebody else, influenced by somebody else. Continue until you feel compassion rise in your heart like a well filling with fresh water and your anger and resentment disappear. Practice this exercise many times on the same person. All right, let's break that down together. Imagine a person who has caused you suffering. That would be my abusive ex, my younger children's father. Try to examine what makes this person happy and what causes suffering in his daily life. Okay, what makes this person happy? Being in control, beer. What causes this person suffering? His childhood. Try to examine what makes this person happy. Okay, we did that. Imagine this person's perceptions. Try to see what patterns of thought and reason this person follows. That anyone who hurt him deserves to be hurt back. You hurt me, I hurt you kind of thing. Eye for an eye. Well, let's make it biblical. Their perceptions, what patterns of thought and reason. Examine what motivates this person's hopes and actions. What motivates my ex is being seen as a perfectionist, being seen as a hero, being seen as a good family person. You know, he's a good dude, and he's a child of God, and he's very family oriented, and he's a hard worker. Finally, consider this person's consciousness. See whether this person views and insights are open and free or not. This person has been influenced by any prejudices, narrow-mindedness, hatred, anger. Okay, my ex, his consciousness, his views, are they open and free or not? Is he influenced by others? His old gang member friends, his neglectful mother, his abusive dad. Is he the master of him? I think the devil is. I mean, continue until I feel compassion in my heart. Okay. He told me a story when we were together about a experience in his childhood involving a lock and being dark. Okay. And so that was a scared, innocent child. And I'm sure what he told me and other stories from his childhood impacted who he is today. Hurt people hurt people. He has been desensitized. He's from a big city. I'm not. He was in a gang. He's been to prison. So he's been exposed to a lot of violent things. And so I think he's been desensitized to it. And so, not that I have compassion for any of that, but as a child, I do. You know, little him, scared in a dark closet. I do have compassion for that. So the point of that was to do that exercise yourself with it, and it takes less than a minute with a half smile. You know, think about somebody who you hate. Have compassion for them. You know, I'm not saying don't hate them. I'm just saying train your brain that when the thought of them comes up and those situations come up, that it's safe. You're safe. You're safe. What this does is it signals to your brain that you're safe, which releases the cortisol, which takes you out of the survival mode and into a state where you're regulated, where you can think and plan ahead and make good decisions and take care of you and your children and your family. So that's the point of all this. And the point I'm really trying to make to you on your healing journey is that you're not your thoughts. You're not your emotion. Watch your mind. Watch your thoughts. Check your mindset. And reality, I'm sorry. I know it sucks, but you have to accept it, not from a place of weakness, but from a place of extreme strength. And so just do it And then you're on the right path to growing in a way where I promise one day you will look back and you will think, I'm really glad that I radically accepted my shitty life. Because you're going to be very far on your healing journey once you radically accept things. And once you get a positive mindset, you're going to see things more clearly and be regulated. And you'll find peace. And nobody will be able to take that from you. And you'll have more control of your life, the things in it that you can control. And you'll know the things that you can't. And you can just really be a peaceful, healed, joyful mom, enjoying her kids who came back or prepared and ready for the day that they do. That's the goal for us all. That's my purpose for healing. I love my children. I'm a mother. I want to be in their life. I want to be a part of their life. I want to raise them. But I accept that I'm not. And I accept that I possibly can't. But I can control the mom who they meet, whatever day that may be, whenever that might be, whatever situation that might be. The only thing I can control is the person they lay their eyes on when we reunify. That's the only thing I can control. And so that's what has strengthened my commitment to healing. And that is what's given me the bravery to do this, to be here on YouTube, is I can control what my children see when we're finally reunified. And when that happens, I want them to see a strong, loving, wise mom who adores them.